Hi, this is Jackie's Reading Room, and I'm your host, Jackie P. Have you turned some pages today? One of my greatest joys is to see my daughters and stepchildren read. But this didn't happen by chance. To make children readers, there needs to be an investment of time and energy for sure, and but possibly a bit of money as well. But it doesn't need to be so expensive. And this has to start from an early age. So today, I'd like to share what I did with my own children. Now, this is not the absolute truth or the only way to do it. I don't have the science of making children readers down to a T. I don't know if there is one, as a matter of fact, but this is very humbly my own way that I did, and I think it worked. I'm hoping that they are readers for the rest of their lives. What's for sure is they'll be able to say that their mom read and encouraged them reading. That's for sure. So let me share with you three things I did and or I still do to create a love of reading in my children and to a certain extent as well, my stepchildren. So the first thing I did is I started early. I think I was waiting for my first daughter to be a bit old enough, and that means a couple months for her to be able to sit a bit more straight, right, hold her head. And then I started, reading board books to her. She also had these, these kind of crinkly books made of cloth, but inside they put this material that sort of crinkles and makes noise. And she would, I would put that in her hands, and she was sitting in her little bumbo seat. I was remembering that, and these are fond memories. And really, she could manipulate the books. So there were books to manipulate, but books for her, right, as a child. A long, long time ago, there were no books for children, but today, and if you've ever stepped recently into a bookstore or a library, my God, you'll know that they have so much choice and beautiful colored books for any age. I did all kinds of things as well. I did story time for babies at the library. At the time, I lived in Toronto, and the library had this program. Let's say it was once a week, and you went with your baby, and then there were some stories, some songs, maybe even some dancing. um my God, this was a fun time. I enjoyed it, I embraced it. And one thing I also did, and this is really not necessary, but I this was something I really wanted to do, is I did some baby sign language. So my daughters can hear very well, but maybe some of you know that using sign language with the hearing babies, and of course saying the word as you sign it, helps with comprehension, helps with developing language. And of course, I'm all for that. And also, the truth is, I actually wanted to learn some sign language. And so this was my excuse. And so I used books and signs. And my God, so I had a lot of fun doing that. I believe my kids enjoyed that. And even to this day, there are still some signs that I will use: the sign for thank you, the sign for please, or the I love you sign. You have to look this up, right? Because this is audio. I can't demonstrate it for you. But um, so I started early on for both my daughters. And of course, when my second daughter was born, my first daughter would, read or look at books with her sister. And this to me was the most beautiful thing. When you see your oldest read to your youngest, well, I guess that was happy memories. The second thing I did is, well, there were books in the house, and I guess I should say there are still books in the house all over the place. There are books on shelves, there are books on tables, there are books in drawers. And they all have, their space. So there is space for library books and books for space for my books. And so from an early age, my daughters were used to having books in the house. Um, and if you look around in your house, and you don't have to have them lying around just about everywhere, but to have a dedicated space for books, and to be around them, I think this is excellent. So we have, or we had, and still have some, picture books. You can have a bookshelf. Both my daughters have bookshelves in their rooms, with not only books, but like things that they accumulate, board games, magazines, etc. And when from very early on, we would read a book before bedtime. It was a very, you did the bath, pajama, and then maybe a bit of milk, and then we went into the bedroom, and then I read a story. These are moments I will cherish forever. I did sing songs too, but this is not necessary, but it's something that I used to love. And also, I took my kids to the library very early. I grew up in libraries. I believe I mentioned that before, in previous podcasts. I believe there was one where I talked about borrowing versus buying books. You don't have to buy books. You can ask for books as presents for your baby or your child, or for yourself even, and give them as well as presents. But the library has a lot of resources for every age, and every um, interest as well. And the third thing that I do, I did, and I still do, and this is not just for my kids, but for my students. Uh, well, and I would say possibly also very much for myself, is I lead by example. I read a lot. I read a lot. I read a lot about books. I have um, magazines where I read reviews, websites where I read about books. I'm always on the indigo.ca website to find out about authors and books, blogs, etc. I borrow books at the library on a regular basis. It's not uncommon for me to go to the library twice in a week to either drop a book, pick one up that I reserved. I am a steward of two little free libraries. I believe I may have mentioned that before. One is in front of my house, and one is behind the college where I teach. So I share my love of reading everywhere I go. It's just, it's because now, in the last few years, I discovered that my mission in life was to put books in the hands of people. It's become so easy to just do it every day, every week, because it's what I do. It's my thing, if I may say that like that. I My kids and I, we read together. We'll read side by side. Like with my youngest is now 11, and so obviously I don't necessarily read her stories anymore, but we'll sit side by side on the couch at night, and read. We're each read our book, but sometimes I'll ask questions, or I'll say, "Okay, finish your chapter. It's time to go to bed." And then she'll say, "Yes, yes, just a moment," and then read one more, which is totally what I used to do. We'll talk about what we read. When my daughters go to their father's house and then they come back, I finished this book, or I read 3 4 chapters. It's a culture of reading that we've created. Just a few days ago, I went to a conference that actually was talking about that, about the culture of reading. And in the conference, there was a mention of the myth of reading being a solitary activity. I disagree. I don't think that is true. Obviously, if you're alone in your house with your little cup of tea and your book, for me, this is a wonderful thought. But to be sitting, with, let's say my daughter, or and my stepson, or um, my daughters together, and reading side by side, and then discussing what we're reading. We share. We It's great for vocabulary, right? Reading books and seeing the words. We get excited about new books coming out. My daughter is now like finishing a series. I believe the series had like 15 books. And so we talk about this. We like to try to meet the authors if we can. I know in Montreal there's like a book show, Le Salon du Livre of Montreal. And so sometimes we'll go there. If there's events online, I try to attend. So there's so much that you can do, but leading by example is reading yourself. And reading is a habit. That was one of the things that I got from the conference. A lot of the things I knew, but um, reading is a habit. So if it's not one of your habits, well, why don't you start small? 15 minutes every night, or every morning, or every lunchtime. You have to find what works for you, right? Depending on your situation. As I was doing my research, I found this great book that really works well with what I've been telling you today. It's called How to Give Your Child a Lifelong Love of Reading. And this is from the British Library Publishing 2020. And I saw that it's actually available through indigo.ca. I'm mentioning this site. You can go on other websites. I would imagine that other bookstores can get it for you. Or um, so I thought this would be a very interesting book to read, to see, because perhaps there is some research behind this. Um, and but even if there isn't, I guess I wanted to share you what I personally did, and hopefully, what I did is going to continue in time for my daughters and my stepchildren. Listen, some children's books that I love to end. I believe I may have talked about Brown Bear. Brown Bear, What Do You See? By Bill Martin, illustrated by the famous Eric Carle. A beautiful little board book for kids. For older kids, two books that I loved recently as well. The Darkest Dark by Chris Hadfield, former astronaut, came out in 2018, and it's the story of how he decided to become an astronaut. And Malala Yousafzai, that you may know, wrote a memoir called I Am Malala, but she also wrote this children's book called Malala's Magic Pencil. It's so beautifully illustrated. This came out in 2017, and I really think it's a great present to give a child, and it tells Malala's story and how she decided to fight for an education for all, especially girls. And if you have older nieces, nephews, grandkids, and so on, um, who are like, let's say 11 to maybe 13 years old, I would recommend the Misewa Saga by David A. Robertson. He is a Cree author from Manitoba. And right now there are three titles. The first one is The Barren Grounds. I really enjoyed it. I read book one, book two, and I've reserved book three at the library. So this is continuing on. So I get excited about all kinds of books for all kinds of ages, because I have, um, children in my house, and I have, teenagers and young adults as students. So I certainly hope that you were inspired to get your child, grandchild, nephew, etc. reading. Don't forget that books make great presents. And if you go with something they love, you can't really go wrong. So hope you enjoyed, and I will see you very soon. Take care.